So there are some benefits to doing a registered apprenticeship program. It will extend and embed hands-on practice. It's really an immersive experience. If you are an apprentice, then you start the school year with when your mentor teacher does, you are immersed in all aspects of school life. So not just the instructional, the planning and delivering of lessons, but you also go to parent teacher conferences, you go to faculty meetings, you attend PD with that mentor teacher, you see the full school day from beginning to end at the beginning, and a full school year from beginning to end. Um, it also removes financial and scheduling barriers to earning a teaching certificate. Lots of us know that we sometimes lose really wonderful candidates when it comes to student teaching because they simply can't afford to quit a job in order to take that time to do student teaching. Sometimes we lose them even earlier than that when clinical practices hit and they can't manage a work schedule along with the clinical hours that they need to put in. And it allows districts to work with teacher candidates around specific work needs of their district and work with higher eds, which do this to some extent. I think it's a deepening of the conversations and a deepening of the experience for the teacher candidate. So that's a very sort of brief overview of some of the benefits. But in the chat, or if you're more comfortable, if you want to just unmute yourself and answer these questions, what benefits resonate most for you? And, is there another benefit that we haven't talked about that you would highlight? So if you would take a moment and drop those in the chat or unmute yourself and share your thinking, that would be great.
I'll just jump in and say the financial barrier for folks is one that resonates really strongly with, especially recruiting future teachers. We know that financial barriers are the number one reason that folks do not continue education or go into certification. So having that there is probably the one that stands out pretty strongly for me.
Yeah, thank you. I think in addition to not being able to even enter into a teaching certificate program, sometimes what often happens too is that students are working so much and then having to take so many credits that we're not really getting an accurate view of what it is that they can and can't do in terms of their studies because they're overwhelmed. Other thoughts? I see we have a fire drill in the making for one of our participants. Um, Amy, thank you. It allows for a very supportive environment as they become teachers. That's really true. Thank you for mentioning that benefit as well, because they're, as Colleen likes to say, elbow to elbow with a mentor teacher. And because they're part of the school community, they also find other people that will help guide them through, answer questions. It really does have much more of a community feel to it when you are an apprenticeship. You feel like you are when you are an apprentice, you feel like you are part of the community. Any other thoughts that people would like to highlight in terms of which one of these benefits resonates or another benefit that you would like to highlight?
Jean Ann, one of the things I put in the chat that you and Steve have talked about, and I've heard also from our other partners that have taught apprentices in classes with both apprentices and non-apprentices or residents and non-residents, is the depth of learning and the questions and the value the application has in real time.
Yeah, thank you, Colleen. I'm sorry I missed your comment in the chat. To piggyback on that, one of the other things that I've heard is apprentices being able to articulate the value of looking at data for students, being able to be in a classroom and on a regular basis learning how to progress monitor a student, working with other teachers to look at the data that's being gathered in the school and have conversations about that, have that inform their teaching. That takes time. as many of you know, and data can be a really overwhelming thing to a first-year teacher. So I hear some added benefits there as well.
If I could jump in, having taught the curriculum and instruction class when I was working in higher ed, half my class was in the traditional student teaching program and the other half was in the apprenticeship program. And when I would give the assignment, okay, folks, you're going to build a unit. It's going to be 8 lessons long. These are the different elements, and we will be meeting to review your work over the course of the semester. The students that were in the apprenticeship program went to their school-based teacher educator and they said, hey, Dr. Dan has asked me to build a curriculum unit. What do you think we should do? So they strategized together. Well, you know, in a few weeks, we're going to be doing the life cycle of plants. Why don't we build a unit around that? So the students that are in the apprentice placement are real time building an instructional unit with their attending teacher. And at the end of the project, the difference in work is striking. One is applied learning with an expert, a journey worker, and the other is doing their best with rubrics and with my input. And then the neatest thing was when they get to look at the student work samples, the apprentices, that is, and get to share their observations, their analyses, and their reflections with the whole group. It's pretty amazing, and it confirms the value of an apprentice experience over the traditional one.
Thanks, Steve. Heather, you can go to the next slide. As you can tell, we have people at the Hub that are very passionate about this work, and we could talk to you all day long about what we have seen happening among apprentices. This slide is one that just talks about the key players and what they do. So some of this is a repeat from what you've already heard. But who is an apprentice? A teacher candidate is an apprentice, and they work alongside an expert teacher for a minimum of 1 year to complete their on-the-job training requirements. They're also completing coursework and clinical requirements in order to earn a teaching certificate. The school district, the BOCES, the charter, or the private school, they are the RAP sponsor or a co-sponsor or a signatory employer. And all of that, the good news for higher eds is you actually don't need to think very much about that because you need to think about it, but you're not responsible for filling out all the paperwork and doing all the tracking there because the apprentice is actually an employee. And what happens also is that there's work with the union to identify an experienced teacher. We all know that placement is huge in terms of apprenticeships, student teaching, clinical experiences. The placement often makes such a big difference for the teacher candidate. So the union works alongside with the district to identify some experienced teachers, and then the college and the school district work together to place apprentices. They also provide oversight and they work with New York State Department of Labor to monitor the program. Teacher unions, as you've heard in a couple of ways, they are very important to this. They're co-signers or they sign off on the program. Again, they work to identify the experienced teachers that will work alongside of the apprentices, and they work with the districts to ensure compensation. Definitely want to have them around the table when this work is being done. And then the Educator Preparation Program, or the IHE, is the related instructional provider. And what IHEs are responsible for in the state of New York is registering a residency pathway because a residency is necessary in order to build the apprenticeship on top of it. IHEs provide the coursework, the clinical experiences, the recommendation that leads to initial teacher certification. All of that remains the same. The higher eds are the group, that's the entity that is either going to say, yes, this person is ready for their initial teaching certification, or nope, we need to do something else. And that something else, as you all know, has a variety of places where we can go. So the higher ed, the work in terms of I was telling someone the other day that my words leave me about 3 o'clock every afternoon, so I'm a little early today. My apologies. But the higher eds actually continue to do what you have always done in terms of ensuring that the teacher candidates are ready for that initial certification. The difference with the apprenticeship program is that you have a closer relationship with the experienced teacher that the apprentices are being placed with. Whew, that is a mouthful. So I am now going to turn it over, I think, to Amy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for outlining those roles. And today, like our title implies, we're really focusing on that role of the IHE. So thank you, Gina, for setting us up there. Through the development of apprenticeship models, we really see the role of the IHE or the EPP shifting a bit. Since a registered apprenticeship program or a RAP is designed to meet the specific needs of school partners, and since school partners are the sponsors of the program or can be one of the sponsors, the development of a RAP really relies on enhanced collaboration between different stakeholders. So the IHE in a RAP would be more intensely collaborating in the areas of recruitment, supporting school-based teacher educators or those mentor teachers. And they will also need to think about adjusting their coursework, both possibly content and delivery, in order to meet the needs of the district partner. Furthermore, it opens up the EPPs to the possibility of working with more partners. In the development of a RAP, there may be several EPPs that are supporting the same district, which requires the EPPs to work together to manage the lift of that program. Additionally, a RAP might be working with several districts who want to uplift residency to make them into apprenticeships. And then lastly, there are other key players at the table when it comes to the development of an apprenticeship program that Jean Ann highlighted as well, and players that IHEs may not have typically worked with in the past. For example, the Hub, the Technical Assistance Center that you all are uplifting, the Department of Labor, and unions. And so the role of the IHE is still centered on making sure that teachers are ready to become, or candidates are ready to become teachers and earn that certification. But we do see a little bit of shift in their role, thinking through that collaborative process. We think, if we can go to the next slide, thank you. We think about the development of a registered apprenticeship program on the IHE side in 4 phases. First, we have the orientation phase, during which IHEs will help establish a foundational understanding of registered apprenticeship programs among stakeholders, faculty, clinical coordinators, etc. And during this phase, EPPs can really help lay the groundwork for the next phases of design and implementation. The next phase, design and registration, centers on the collaborative development of registered apprenticeship programs by stakeholders and includes submitting apprenticeship registration forms to the New York State Department of Labor, but that is done by the employer or the sponsor of the group. This could be a district or another entity, but you will have things to contribute in that phase. And then the third phase, where the rubber really meets the road, is implementation. This phase is focused on launching, coordinating, and sustaining a successful apprenticeship program. And then finally, continuous improvement. While continuous improvement is the last phase of the 4, we really don't want teams to think about these phases as linear, especially this area of continuous improvement. Even during the design and implementation, you'll be thinking about how to gather the correct data. You'll be gathering feedback, and continuous improvement is really about engaging partners in the cyclical process of monitoring effectiveness of the program. We're going to take a few minutes on each of these phases and just do a little bit more of a dive into some considerations on the IHE side of these phases, and then we'll have some opportunity for discussion. So if we can go to the next slide, phase 1, orientation. So first up, phase 1, orientation. During this phase, the EPP is really going to need to consider who from their programs will be involved in the development of the registered apprenticeship program. Some key players will likely be leadership, faculty, particularly faculty that teach in the high needs areas in which the apprenticeship might be designed, such as bilingual education or math and science or special education. And then from there, this phase at the EPP level is about developing an understanding about registered apprenticeship programs through the ranks of the EPP and identifying the district's desired outcomes for the program. For example, does the EPP know how many apprentices the district wants to support and what areas, over what period of time, et cetera, really getting an understanding of their desires for the outcomes of their apprenticeship program so that they can think about what they're going to contribute. Additionally, as Colleen highlighted earlier, apprenticeships are built on the quality characteristics of teacher residencies. So EPPs that are currently running residencies can think about how to leverage their existing residency program into an apprenticeship program and build from there. And some of those same team members that are working on a residency program are likely going to be the same members that would think about leveraging that into an apprenticeship program. Phase 2, design and registration, really focusing on design here. During this phase, IHEs or EPPs are focused on a few different areas in the development of a registered apprenticeship program. Specifically, they're contributing by aligning existing curriculum to apprentice needs and on-the-job experiences, as well as aligning the priorities of the districts who sponsor the RAP. For example, and Stephen, I think hit a little bit on this too, if the district is very focused on like the science of reading or a certain unit of study or culturally responsive practices, during this phase, the EPP aligns their coursework with these priorities so that it is supporting the desired outcomes of the district. Furthermore, in this phase, EPPs are thinking through how to support apprentices in their long-term placement in a school district as an employee, and thinking about how to support the teacher educators who will be helping them supporting them while they're on the job. So your mentor teachers. These include mentor teachers or your school-based teacher educators, as well as university-based teacher educators or supervisors. They're also thinking through about how to engage additional campus departments to support apprentices, just like your financial aid office or your admission office or other support services on campus might be available to help candidates. These departments should also be thought of as a resource for apprentices to ensure they're getting they're accessing any of the support they need. And then lastly, during the design phase, EPPs will need to consider their assessment and evaluation and how they might need to adjust based on the long-term placement of apprentices, when they're giving those assessments, how they're being administered, et cetera, and making sure that they're in line with the goals of the apprenticeship program. So really thinking through the learning experience for your apprentices and things that might need to be adjusted. Phase 3 is implementation. And as I said before, this is really where the rubber meets the road, and all the work that is done by the groups during design and orientation comes to fruition. During this phase, EPPs will work together to support apprentices as they are recruited and enter the program. Some considerations for the EPP include identifying challenges or barriers for apprentices as they enter the program. This might be, financial barriers or time constraints or academic challenges that might need to be addressed. The EPP will also support recruitment while the district takes more of a lead role in recruiting apprentices for their program. The EPPs will need to be involved to ensure that potential candidates or apprentices are getting all the information they need to be admitted to the program. The EPPs also collaborate with the districts or the unions in placing students or candidates in classrooms with mentor teachers of high quality. And we also need to be considerate of any compliance issues and figure those out related to the number of hours to be in the class that apprentices need to be in the classroom, different placements that are required for certification, et cetera. And as the program gets up and running, it's going to be important to consider how to manage the workflow of all of that, managing the team that is supporting the apprenticeship program, and identifying and uplifting professional development opportunities when needed among faculty and other team members. Our one last quick dive, and then we'll have some time for conversation, is phase 4, continuous improvement. As I prefaced previously, this is not a last phase. It's really about embedding this practice of a continuous improvement throughout the phases. But this area is about continuous improvement and thinking about how you will collect information on the effectiveness of the program. On the EPP side, you'll need to think about current data that's collected on all candidates and any adjustments you might need to make to content or timeline in order to get information about the apprentices in your program. For example, will you be able to disaggregate the feedback you get from candidates by pathway so you can view information about the apprentices separately to understand if that program is being successful? You also want to think about feedback opportunities from all stakeholders, especially as the program gets up and running. So how are you getting kind of feedback from your mentor teachers, even from school administrators or supervisors? Excuse me. And lastly, and even more importantly, thinking about the regular data discussions you will have and with whom. Data and feedback collected will need to be shared with the district and other stakeholders to analyze if the program is meeting its determined goals and where adjustments may need to be made to continuously improve the program. I'll just underscore that this should not be an afterthought. Even in the orientation and design phase, as the program is being developed, you can start thinking about where these opportunities to collect data on assessments and review data with your district or with districts would be most beneficial. So with that, we want to give an opportunity to do a little bit of chatting. So we're going to, and debriefing a little bit. So some discussion. We're going to do a quick breakout. I think we'll just do random groups of 3 to 4. And in your breakout, I invite you to discuss the following questions. What seems like the most exciting or impactful part of a registered apprenticeship program? What seems like the biggest lift or where more support is needed? And also, what questions do you have? Before we go to breakout, we'll get those questions in the chat so that you have them available. And then also, while we're getting these rooms set up, we're going to ask that one person in the room be designated to be a note taker or a reporter to report out after we come back. So once you get in there, do some quick introductions. You're going to have about 10 minutes, but then really get into those questions, and we'll come back and open this up to the larger group. We'll have a discussion and some Q&A based on the discussions that you have in your rooms. Welcome back. We're waiting on some people to come back still, so be here soon. I think that might be it. Yeah, I think everyone's here. So, well, hopefully you had some fruitful discussions to get our larger group discussion going here. This is really an opportunity for us to turn the mic to you all and to understand some of where your thinking is. I figure we could go kind of breakout room by breakout room. Hopefully you designated someone as kind of a note taker or a reporter. But I'd love to call on breakout room number 1, if you can remember your rooms, and to share some of your thoughts about these questions. Some of the exciting parts you see through the development of an apprenticeship program, the biggest lift, support that's needed, and then any questions that you would like to pose. We have a volunteer from group 1.
I am reporting out. We talked a lot about, obviously, the strengths. I had said in the chat that some of the support, not only within the program, that these Classroom Academy or the apprenticeship program, they feel supported by the school district, but also within the group of teacher candidates. They form a bit more of a cohesive group together. And I think that that's, it establishes a baseline for longevity for them to have success. And many of the students we're talking about taking that kind of our first cohort that just graduated and really taking a look at some data on what their successes are now. So looking back and getting a hold of them this fall just to see how they're applying their knowledge. Secondly, we talked about some of the biggest lifts. We couldn't come up with a lot of a lift, except just, again, I think just the administrative part of making sure that from our end as a higher education institution that we're doing the right paperwork, making sure we're getting all of that between our student account services and our, just our making sure that we're filling out the paperwork the correct way for our students. And lastly, what was the last question?
Any questions? If you all have any questions.
Oh, we didn't really have any questions. This has been very informative.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
You're
Getting
welcome.
us started here. Yeah, I would agree. Like that cohort model that you're describing, when they go through something together, can be really powerful through residencies and apprenticeships as well. They really lean into each other to help support them through, a really formative experience for their career. So with that, let's think about maybe room two. Do you remember what room you're in? We'd love to hear a little bit about your conversation. So room two, do you have something that you can share from your discussion?
I just, again, Kelly Navarro from the RF. I was mentioning about how for rural districts, this has been sort of a godsend, only because they struggle to obviously relocate teachers, and to be able to have a candidate within the district already that lives there and be able to, create a program and a pathway for that person to become a teacher. Just the superintendent can say enough great things about it. So
great, thank you for that. Any questions that arose, Kelly, or other members from room two?
We had any, I think they're still exploring, right? There were some ideas about how to approach superintendents or how to instruct them to approach it, right? Does it come from us? Does it come from the district? Where does that come from? So
in regards to getting it started, like the apprenticeship program?
Yes.
Colleen, maybe you'll weigh in on that, but I think it can, both of those are, I see the superintendent as an extension of the district, right? So they could probably both and.
So what's interesting is that, and we'd be happy to talk to higher eds about how to best approach the districts and superintendents. Districts and superintendents are, or privates and charters, whomever the potential partners can be. It's a shift in everybody's thinking, right? And so we've been working on that shift. And so it's important as if higher eds approach the conversation that they are approaching it through the workforce development lens. And so because it's kind of a evolving relationship from what it used to be in terms of just placing student teachers within districts. And so helping the district understand their kind of new role. We've been doing that work. So happy to partner with any higher ed who wants to approach a district or superintendent to start this conversation. It can really be started from either side of the table, either from the higher ed's position or from the district approaching the higher ed. We've had programs register residencies so that they can participate with districts who have approached them and said, we really want to do this work. And we need you to help us by doing this so that you can provide the related instruction. So it can really be, it's a very much a two-way street.
Yeah, I think I didn't capture the question in my mind, but I think you're hitting on it exactly. And it's really about, opening up the conversation. How can we support each other in this work? What are your needs in the workforce so that we can help move together in the right direction, thinking about it as a really collaborative approach. Anything else from room two? to room 3, but if there's other things that pop up during the conversation, feel free to unmute and add. Room 3 was Angela, Gloria, and Ismail, according to what I'm reading here. Someone want to share from room 3?
Sure, I'll share. So we basically spoke about the same things that room 2 did. Our concern was the pushback that we get from school districts, and again, making those connections. And also what the roles are for each person between educator, administrator, and then also the student, right? So what are the exact roles? Also, another question was, speaking from the city viewpoint, is this, what is the difference between the fellowship and the apprenticeship? Is this a better pathway than what was there before? Is it similar? Because again, there are so many different avenues that what is better, which one do we go with, or, and which one is really being proposed within the district to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, let's say B, not A and C. So there's a lot of confusion around that. And also, I think the biggest problem for us was really across, again, all education across the board is really the partnerships. Our concern, and I've seen it firsthand, the pushback of getting teachers
Can
to
you
go
tell
in.
me, Gloria, a little bit more about the pushback?
So a lot of the teachers, for me, I'm a certified program, so they used to need clinical time. Now we have observation time. So a lot of my students reach out to districts or want to go into a district to practice and prepare for their program. And a lot of districts say, no, we already have our group for this semester. You needed to apply a semester ago or last summer, or timing is off. So my students are always scrambling to find a placement.
So the interesting thing just to know about the residency is if the program is registered as a residency, it absorbs all those hours into the 1,000-hour placement. So you don't have to do separate observation hours, separate clinical all those that have been spread out in the traditional student teacher model are now captured in the one placement and program so that students aren't scrambling to find things.
Okay, and then how do you get, I guess, also the buy-in, right, from the districts to do this, to want to do this?
So we have a lot of information and would be happy to connect with you either through Jean Ann or Steve or myself, whomever on the team, or maybe a group of us to talk through how we frame it for districts. Because, 2 years ago, the common refrain was, but we don't pay student teachers. And so we have the research, we have the data, we have, for lack of a better phrase, the marketing language to show them what their return on investment is. If they invest in paying these candidates up front, the longevity they get, the retention they get, the cost savings through those things, as well as the continuous, undisrupted school community and learning environment for their students are all super positive things. And now that we have some apprenticeships up and running off the ground in the various regions of the state, we can actually have them talk to people that are doing the work and seeing that return on investment come to life.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm just going to add, for those in rural areas, we are speaking, our team, at the Rural Schools Conference this summer in Lake Placid, and we will have a panel. And the panel will be composed of a former apprentice, a former attending teacher, a school district leader, union representative, and those individuals will reflect on their experiences in the apprenticeship program. We did this as a webinar for a number of rural schools, and they were so taken by the information that we were asked to speak at the summer conference, because there's a lot of reasons to do this work. And reach out to me or Colleen or other team members, and we can give you a lot of that material in a conversation or through handouts and such.
And the other thing I'll say just quickly on Gloria's question about differences, I think we need to approach this like a really good classroom teacher, right? We need to differentiate for our various candidates and what their needs are. Some candidates need a different approach. Are they better or different? No, they're different. I mean, we have our own personal opinions about what's better and what's not. In a fellowship program like in New York City, typically the candidate becomes the teacher of record for all or part of the day. And that is not the case in the apprenticeship. They are never the teacher of record, just like in a residency program, they are not the teacher of record. And so we feel that that provides a much stronger ramp into the profession because they do have that consistent and constant guidance. Room 4.
And room 4, we have Dr. Joyner and Keisha Brandy.
Hi, good afternoon. So it was actually Rick and I. Rick had to jump off. I think he said he had a meeting. So I was asked to be on this call last minute. So I'm learning a lot about the apprenticeship program. Buffalo State University in our partnership is with Buffalo Public Schools. So I believe that Buffalo Public is the one that actually applied for this apprenticeship through the Department of Labor.
Yep.
New York State Department of Labor. And so I was asked to do paperwork for our students. That's definitely where the support is needed in the paper for me. I do believe on the academic side, our professors are working well. So I'll go back. We have 3 slots. Only 1 slot is taken right now. It's taken because there was another gentleman who was in the program and for financial reasons was not able to stay in the program. So from what I understand, it was a grant that is not providing enough funds for them to finish the program. And so the students who are in the program don't have the financial means because they're aides and assistants. They cannot afford to finish up the program. And so out of the 3 slots, we only have 1 student that's in the program. So I was asked to see how we can get the program to its full capacity, by being on this call. So that would be another support need is like the financial. I do believe we get about $6,000 from the district for each student, which is not enough for them to finish a master's program. These students do have a bachelor's degree and they come to Buffalo State to get a master's in special education.
So we would love to talk to you, Keisha, about that and how to braid some funding resources together. So certainly reach out to Steve, myself, and we'll figure out a time to talk to you about that. The $6,000 is through the SUNY Apprenticeship Fund.
Right.
There is other potential funding that the district could access.
Okay.
IHE may not be able to access it, but Buffalo City School District as the sponsor might be able to access it.
Okay, that sounds great.
And for those of you who, and I'll send you some information, Keisha, for the candidate who was unable to complete, they're right now through JFF and Google have a national apprenticeship fund. And for those who are facing financial difficulty and may not complete a program because of financial challenges, they can apply for a one-time $2,800 cost support, which through this National Apprenticeship Fund, if that $2,800 will help get them towards completion of the program. They have to explain their barriers. They have to explain how the $2,800 will help, but it can be used for tuition. It could also be used for to support transportation costs or childcare costs or whatever is standing in the way of those completion costs. So I can share that information with you as well.
Keisha, if you could put your contact information in the chat, with SUNY RF that disperses those funds. And I would love to talk to you only because I did run the numbers. I know that there's still like a $16,000 shortfall in terms of what someone needs to complete the program. And so I would
Okay.
definitely love to talk to you. So please put your contact information in the chat.
Thank you.
Kelly, we're also working to pilot with a couple of local workforce development boards accessing individual training dollars through WIOA. So that might be, we're doing that this spring. So that might be something, and I'll talk to you about that at a separate time, like that we might be able to leverage.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're getting closer to time here, but we have
Do we have one more room?
Yeah, one more room. I see Devin was in the
I
room.
was in room 5 with one other person who has had to leave for another reason she indicated. But I'm here gathering information as well. But some of the issues that arose had to do with as the person who reported for room 3 indicated roles, exactly what role each area is responsible for. In terms of districts communicating with the HigherED institution and so forth. So there seemed to be quite a need for clear communication, among the different pieces that are involved with the program. The other issue that arose has to do with districts where there are great need for teachers wanting to fill vacancies using those apprentices or residents in that area. Concerns also about prior learning credits that arise from students who are involved wanting to get credit for prior learning, etc. And also just a bit related to the hours, not a lot of it is related to the hours, but still concerned with ensuring that the number of hours are fulfilled well enough.
The number of hours or what, Devin? I'm sorry.
Clinical hours to be covered. Yes, somebody indicated that they are spread out, unlike the regular student teaching. They're spread out over a variety of activities and so forth. But it's just a concern for where those hours could actually be pulled from to meet the requirements.
Okay, the 1,000-hour requirement or like
Yes.
the individual?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if I'm understanding that concern correctly, the apprenticeship seems to address that because they would have a full year, right, or more to think about where you could cover those hours.
So does
But I
the
don't know if it's-
residency, Amy.
Yeah.
So does the residency.
Indeed. Yep.
And just an addition here is that the need for clear distinction between the residency and the apprenticeship.
So it's difficult to be distinct. As I said, the residency it requires for the certificate that there be a stipend for the candidate, but there's not a minimum for that stipend. Whereas an apprenticeship, it has to be at least minimum wage hourly, or translate to that hourly over the course of the year. So the apprenticeship is built on the residency because in order for an apprentice to be hired in a public school and paid by the public school, they have to hold a residency certificate. So their higher ed partner has to have access to that certificate through having a registered residency program. So a resident can exist and not be an apprentice. But in a public school setting, an apprentice always has to be a resident. And in both those programs, neither one of them, in terms of addressing the concern about what districts want apprentices or residents to do, in both of those programs, they are not allowed to be the teacher of record. So there's a match there. In the apprenticeship program, they are allowed to typically substitute for their own teacher during the program. And we recommend, they can also substitute in their certification area, but we recommend that that be backloaded at the district. So if it's a one-year program, they only substitute outside their own classroom during like the second half of the program. We don't want them to be overwhelmed at the beginning. We want to build for success and longevity. So we explain that to districts. And we typically, if it's a one-year program, don't recommend that they sub for more than 20 days outside their classroom. And we don't recommend in a two-year program that they sub for more than 40 days outside their classroom. So we help the district build it. And we understand the urgency of their need, but we also understand that we eat our own in education. And if we throw them into situations that they're not ready for before they're ready, they will not only leave that district, they will leave the profession. And that's not what we want.
Yeah, thank you for that. We are getting close to time, so I appreciate this discussion. I feel like we could talk even a little bit more, but we'll definitely take these questions and think through about how their supports may be needed, and also encourage you to reach out to either of us, either the hub or branch ed, as you think through these items. To highlight that before we jump off and give you an opportunity for feedback, we do have some forthcoming tools coming up. I've noted them here on the screen, that are specifically IHE facing. So these are forthcoming, and once we have final copies of them, we will send them out. But we have a toolkit about navigating your role as the IHE and apprenticeship program, like an assessment to think about where you might start with the work. A planning guide for the orientation phase, and then a tool on building systems for recruiting and supporting school-based teacher educators. So those are on the docket and are being finalized, and we'll send them out as soon as they are ready to be sent out. So those are upcoming. We want to thank everyone for being here today. Before you go, here's some contact information from us. We will also be sending out these slides so you have access to the information as well as the links that are provided here. And then lastly, I know we're a minute over, but if you have a minute, we sure would love some feedback about our webinar today. We have two polls that we're going to launch. The first one I think is already up. So feel free to answer that. And in a moment, we will switch to the second question as well. Thank you. The second one. If you haven't answered that poll yet, take a moment and do so. We want to thank everyone again for your participation today. We are a few minutes over time. Colleen, did you want to say anything before we close?
No, I would just encourage whoever needs help, would like more information for their understanding around registered teacher apprenticeships, that they please reach out to us at the hub. We would be more than happy to. This is a lot of information to take in. It's really new thinking. And so sometimes it really helps to have kind of a one-on-one or multiple team members having a conversation where you can ask questions and we can make points of clarification in real time. So would welcome that opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and please reach out if you want some more conversations. We appreciate it.
Thank you.